r/TalesFromYourServer, episode 28. Sugar packets on the tables. Just wanted to rant about my pet peeves with people and sugar packets. 1. Kids, and the parents who let them, who dump all the packets out, after I've spent time filling and arranging them on every table and proceed to play with / mix them up, and stuff them back in the holder. 2. People who open a packet, use only half and stuff the open packet back in the holder. I get that you're maybe trying to not be wasteful, but it's unsanitary and half the time I spill the open packet when I'm messing with the sugar holder. 3. People who use the packets as a not-up or to test a pen then put them back. I was surprised when I first saw this, but it's more common than you might think for people who stuff random garbage in the holders. What the heck? It's a small little thing, I know, but it happens so often it's frustrating to deal with. The universe gave me a gift. You're all the only people in the world who will appreciate this. I had exactly the same amount of forks, knives, and napkins when I rolled my silver tonight. I've been serving for 14-ish years. This has never happened, and I'm so excited. Lol, I hope you one day get to experience this joy. You don't have the right to complain about your food if you've sat there and ate every last bite. You know those regular tables that come in and everyone is like it's your turn. I got them last time. Well, one of them showed up tonight. They have been an issue for over a while. Something is always wrong with their meal. Give them 5/5 service and they still tip 15% or under on big meals. Blah, blah, blah. You all know the works. Anyway, they ordered their regular meal. I bring it to them. Later, I come to check to see if everything is okay. This doesn't have the usual seasoning and flavor. Is there a different chef back there? Me, no, it's the same ones as usual. I'm so sorry about that. Would you like me to take it back and get you a fresh one? I definitely do not want to do this, but I'm just covering all of my bases. Oh, no. We aren't wasteful people, so this will be fine. It's just not the same as usual, and I don't think it was cooked right. I apologize, again, and offer them one last time a replacement meal. They decline. 20 minutes pass. I go to check on them to see if I can get them anything else and there is literally nothing left on the plate. I ask them if I can get them anything else, and they order one of our desserts to go. Then, they have the audacity to ask if they can get it carved, since their meal wasn't how it was supposed to be. It would be one thing if I hadn't tried multiple times to get them a fresh plate made, but I honestly asked them for sure 3 times and they declined every single time. And if it was so bad, why was there nothing left? Not even a single crumb. My manager went out there and explained to them that we wouldn't be doing that since they finished their meal even after being asked if there was anything we could do to fix it for them. I truly cannot stand people who just complain to get stuff for free. Get out of my face and get out of this restaurant. Don't come back, please. I'm a server, not a mindreader. I had a table of 4 last night that were really nice. I gave them great service, brought their beers immediately, their food was quick, always checking on them, etc. When I took payment from one of the ladies, she said in a snarky voice, I gave you a lower tip because you didn't bring us water. She never asked me for water and they all had beers to drink, so I just said I'm sorry to hear that. If you would ask me for some water I definitely would have brought it for you. She replied, you should have known. Sorry, but how am I supposed to read her mind and know what she wants if she doesn't ask? A pet peeve. I'm in my late 20s, I work a full-time job and I make good money. I live alone and am comfortable. Something that kind of bothers me is that I'm often asked what else I'm doing other than serving. While yes, I'm not trying to do this forever, it bothers me that many just don't consider it a real job. I put in more than 40 hours a week. That's full-time. Why am I always being asked what else I'm doing, as if my job doesn't count? I'm not a teenager working part-time. IDK if this is a common thing or not, but it's something that has annoyed me over the years. Can I borrow a lighter? It's an emergency. Oh, The joys of being a server. I work in a small restaurant that has an apartment beneath it. The new family living there is less than ideal. I've had lots of trouble with them assuming they get to eat for free, since they live below us. We are not their landlord, and not associated with them at all, so no, they cannot eat for free. They've gotten food promising to pay later and never had, come up to use our washroom when Thiz was occupied, asked to borrow entire rolls of toilet paper, because they are too lazy to shop, never tip, etc. So anyway, it's a slow rainy evening, so I'm enjoying a little break with a coffee and a bowl of soup when our front door swings open with great force. I immediately jump up ready to deal with whatever fresh hell is upon me when I see a familiar face. It's the father from downstairs. Before I can greet him, he speaks in a panicked voice. I notice his hands are shaking, and he looks legitimately upset. I need a lighter, he says. Do you have a lighter I can borrow? It's an emergency. I don't smoke, so I went to the kitchen and took one of our big lighters for lighting the grill and ran it to him, all the while wondering what he could possibly need it for. I figured there must be a problem in his apartment. Maybe? It didn't make sense to me, but as I said, he seemed visibly upset. He hasn't even come into the restaurant, he's half in half out the door letting all the cold Canadian air in. I hand him the lighter expecting him to run downstairs and wondering if we'd ever get it back. But nope. I shit you not, he takes the giant kitchen lighter and lights a joint. Still half inside the restaurant. I mean, pot's legal here now, and I'm all for it, but really? Emergency? And lighting up inside my restaurant? GTFO. TL, Dr. Guy that lives below the restaurant claims to have a real emergency and requires our kitchen lighter. The emergency is that he needed to light his joint. How mad would you be as a server? Out to eat with friends, one single, two younger teens I mentor, and one couple who have kids, one baby in the restaurant with the dad, one toddler asleep in the car with mom waiting for him to wake up and bring him in. When I got there we had to move to a larger table due to a miscommunication from another friend who didn't even end up going. Luckily they hadn't ordered yet, just drinks and bread for the table, and the staff was very accommodating. We move to a bigger table and order, food comes, toddler wakes up, mom brings him in, he doesn't want to sit at our table. Parents let him sit at a vacant booth by himself. Restaurant is busy with after church patrons. Mom capitulates and sits with him separate from everyone in our group. Dad ends up taking his food, baby's food, toddler's food and mom's food to the booth they were not officially seated at. Single friend eventually joins them so they can catch up. Hadn't seen each other in a while, leaving the two young teens and me at a table for 8. They proceed to finish their food at the booth while I chat with the kids with me and another friend I knew that was eating there at the same time and came over to talk. I was super embarrassed. I love them, but don't really like going to eat with them because they have no control over their kids and the toddler is allowed to wander the restaurant, which makes my skin crawl. So in the time we were there we used 3 tables. One without permission during one of their busiest times during the week. Also, it is not a seat yourself restaurant. If you were our server, how mad would you be? Mouse leg and chocolate, malt sucked up straw into mouth by man, wife freaks out, cops called. One time username because this story, although 100% true, is so seriously fed up. If this is TL, doctor for you, scroll to bottom for super brief summary. Or if you want the details, start here. So, I promise to you all that this really did happen, although it is totally disgusting. It still seems unreal when I think about it now. I was a waitress at 2 different restaurants from 1996 to 2004 while in HS and college. The first restaurant I worked for was a small family-owned business ran by a husband and wife. I worked there from 1996/2000. The way the place was set up was that people could walk in and seat themselves, at which time servers would bring menus, take orders, serve meals, etc. We were also similar to an ice cream counter because we had 20 flavors of hand-dipped ice cream, as well as soft serve, and if PPL didn't want to eat a meal they could just come in for a shake, sundae, or cone. Think hand-dipped shakes, sundae toppings, banana splits, etc. So, in addition to serving tables who had come to sit and eat a meal, we had to cover the ice cream counter. One year, most likely 1997 I believe, the owner, let's call her Sally, decided she would close down for a few weeks to do some remodeling. She was always cheap and trying to cut costs, so the first day we opened back up after the remodel, Sally scheduled just herself and me to work. That day she cooked and washed dishes. She rarely ever left the kitchen in general, and I covered all tables in the restaurant, /11 tables, ranging from 2 to 5 tops, and covered the ice cream counter. Naturally, because we were understaffed, we ended up being swamped all afternoon, and it was all I could do to keep up. During this time I had a husband and wife come in and sit at a 2-top. The man ordered a hand-dipped chocolate malt, and I was hustling like mad to keep everyone fed and happy. As I began making his chocolate malt, I realized that we had run out of chocolate syrup. So my 16-year-old self made a quick decision to substitute hot fudge for the chocolate syrup in order to keep moving quickly and hopefully keep everyone happy. I scooped the ice cream into the metal cup, added some milk, and went over to the hot fudge hot well, which was a metal container in a water-filled hot well, covered with a plastic lid that had a small notch cut in it to accommodate the ladle. Translate, lid was never sealed to container tightly. I was rushing like mad, scooped it all in, put it up under the mixer, poured most of it into the old-fashioned clear shake glasses, added whipped cream and cherry, and then delivered it to the table, along with the remaining malt left in the metal container with long spoon, which was how we did it. Chocolate malt successfully delivered, I hustled on to the next customer's needs and wants. A few minutes later the man's wife came up to me at the cash register, grasping something small between her thumb and pointer finger, demanding, "Do you know what this is?" I was so young and busy, had no idea what she could be talking about, so was thinking to myself, bitch, this better be good, because I don't have time for this shit. But I wasn't expecting what she said next. She said, "This is a mouse leg," and my husband sucked it up the straw of his chocolate malt. She was freaking out and very loud, and I was dumbfounded and wasn't sure if she was crazy or what. The owner, Sally, soon heard this woman making a commotion at the register and came out of the kitchen to see what that ranting was about. So the customer stated again to Sally that her husband had sucked a mouse leg up his straw. The next thing I know, wife and Sally are yelling, and Sally says, "I need to see this in more light." So she snatched it from between the woman's fingers, walked through the kitchen, and out the back door into the sunlight, wife following the entire way. As soon as Sally got outside she said to the wife dismissively, "This is just a cherry stem," and promptly threw it in the weeds beyond the very small paved parking, never to be found again. Wife promptly freaked out, barged back through the kitchen, into the dining room, yelling the entire time about the mouse leg, and that she would be calling the cops, and hustled out of the restaurant with her hubby. This left me dumbfounded, no longer in sync and unable to remember what I was doing, or what my other tables needed, because it was such a commotion and now I had the entire restaurant looking at me like, what the hell just happened? Talk about uncomfortable. Trying to make sense of what had happened, I quietly ran the situation through my head and remembered that I had used hot fudge rather than chocolate syrup to make the malt. So, very discreetly, I peeked into the hot fudge well and gave it a stir with a ladle. Sure enough, there was a mouse carcass in the hot fudge. The plastic lid must have been slightly askew during the remodel, allowing the mouse to fall in and then slowly simmer for a week like tender meat in a crock pot. Therefore, when I was rushing to scoop hot fudge into the metal container to make the malt, I must have managed to also scoop up just one of the mouse's little tender drumsticks, which was so well cooked that it was like a tender roast, where the meat just falls from the bones. EWWW. OMG. The wife was right. It was a mouse leg and the husband did suck it into his mouth. Not a cherry stem as the owner had alleged. I couldn't believe this was happening. Almost in shock, I went to the kitchen and told Sally the situation. She of course, quietly, freaked out and promptly took the hot well full of hot fudge to the dumpster and poured it all out. True to her word, the wife had called the cops, and before too long 2 of them showed up to investigate the situation. By then the leg was lost in a sea of untamed weeds behind the paved parking lot, and the remaining carcass, along with the hot fudge, was buried in the dumpster behind the restaurant. The 2 officers did a quick look around the restaurant, finding nothing, meaning Sally and I were off the hook that day. But I will never ever forget that I served a chocolate malt to a man which contained a tender mouse drumstick that he promptly managed to suck up his straw into his mouth. Puke. It has been at least 20 years now, so I suppose it's safe to come clean and tell my Reddit peeps that yes, I once served a man a very tender mouse drumstick as a bonus in his chocolate malt. With almost 10 years of serving experience, this was the most disgusting thing that I ever saw. TL. Doctor Summary. As a 16-year waitress I made a man a chocolate malt with hand-dipped vanilla ice cream and hot fudge, which ended up containing a tender mouse leg, drumstick, after a mouse had fallen in the hot fudge hot well, and simmered until the meat fell from the bones, therefore easily allowing me to unknowingly scoop it up into the malt in my haste. Customer, husband, then sucked said tender drumstick up his straw into his mouth, and his wife, rightfully so, freaked out, made a huge scene, and sent the cops, who found nothing by the time restaurant owner and I had removed all evidence of the 3-legged mouse carcass. Well, how would you feel if I worked in a small bar, mostly regulars, you were always working alone. Nothing too interesting. This specific night we closed at 18:00. The reason was that the bar was rented for a private party. I spent all afternoon hanging up decorations in preparation and the regulars all knew the last round would be at 17:45 to all be out at 19:30 when the party was to start. As 18:15 hit and everyone was finishing their last beers and getting ready to move out as another regular came in that wasn't there earlier that night. Let's call him Anthony. Anthony was a first-class asshole, and from a mile away you could see how many beers he already had as with every beer he would lift his arms more, until he was spread eagle. Yeah, it was fucking weird. Anyway, Anthony was about halfway up, and made his way to the bar, ripped up the paper stating the notification about the private party, and sat at the bar to order a drink. I told him no, we have a private party and everybody needs to leave the premises, because it's rented out. He told me no, I'm a regular, and I'm going to be drinking beer here tonight. I shook my head, and politely told him that I was sorry, but we couldn't do that tonight. Tomorrow we were open for business, and he was more than welcome. I guess his previous beer kicked in, because he got a little bit closer to eagle mode, and started screaming at me, that he solely was keeping the place open, UHH, yeah sure. I told him that, if he was prepared to put down $5,000 for the night, so we could move the party elsewhere he could stay there, no problem. We'd figure it out. Well, $5,000 was more than his monthly tab, so that was ridiculous. That's why we were willing to close the bar for such evenings. It was a lot of money in one go. Anthony wasn't happy with this, so he got up and started ripping the decorations of the wall. At this point I knew there was only one last resort, and I was either going to be punched in the face, or things were going to end up okay. So I ran up to him, put my hand on his shoulder, and turned him around. Then in a very stern voice I told him, "Listen Anthony, you're turning 50 years old, and it is your big party. The only night that is special for you. How would you feel if someone tried to ruin it for you?" It was as if I switched turned, and he started apologizing, went straight for the door and I didn't see him anymore that night. I managed to fix the decorations and no one was the wiser. That day I learned, if you make a drunkard feel conscious about himself he'll fuck off. Something I've used many times since that event. The party was great, and seeing I've met my in-laws during that party I got something out of it too. When I was a server I threw a customer's phone into a trash compactor. Currently stuck between staying as a host or becoming a server. So recently I have kinda be interested in serving. I've been hosting for about a month now, and the managers really love the work that I've been doing as a host. I've talked to a couple of my managers and some of my server co-workers and they're kinda of pushing me to start serving. My thing is that I enjoy the consistency of a weekly check. I work about 4 to 5 days a week and bring home around $200 a week. It's not bad. I'm able to purchase luxuries when I want and still have money left over for bills, groceries, etc. I also became comfortable with hosting and I feel like serving is a lot more work. I have to cater to a guest's every need. Also I'm a little nervous about handling food and drinks. I'm a little clumsy at times and I think I would just drop a carrying tray full of food. Plus I would have to know the menu inside out. Training to become a server is long and extensive and that's kinda turning me off about it. I've also been told that servers can me like 4x as much as I make just in tips, but I heard that servers get those tips taxed at the end of the year and will have to owe the eyes, and I'm nervous about not being able to pay the full amount. Anyone have any advice or any pros/cons? Anything would be appreciated. Update. Pitter patter, let's get it. So I got a lot of private messages with suggestions and tips on how to deal with the problem I mentioned in a previous post. Pitter patter, https://www.reddit.com/r/talesfrommyourserver/comments/pitter_patter_get_it_. So I thought I'd give you guys an update to assuage some concerns. Good news. I spoke to the GM equivalent fellow, who is honestly one of the best supervisors I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Being the fellow who interviewed and hired me, he's fully aware of my motivations and reasoning for working at the restaurant, as well as the time I'm willing to put into it. When I spoke to him about the schedule, he told me flat out to ignore all but 5 of my shifts that week. He picked the 5, but shit, that's more than reasonable. He even was willing to give me a glowing recommendation if I felt the need to branch out in my career, as well as suggesting a nearby bistro that he's close friends with the GM if the hostilities with the scheduling manager end up chafing any further. As I stated before, I absolutely don't want to leave. It's not about the money, it's about getting out of the house, to rub shoulders with peers, to do a service job that I truly love, and to interact with people from walks of life other than my own on a reliably regular basis. Plus the idea of a grown-ass man asking for a petty allowance from his husband strikes me as genuinely absurd, so making a bit of immediately available that night cash on the side is a plus. As for the concerns about the wages and paychecks, I had a rather long conversation with awesome GM guy about how the various pay stub maths and taxes work, and he explained it to me in great detail. I took what he spoke to me about to a friend who does tax law, and it was confirmed legit, so I feel very much put at ease that there's nothing sketchy going on there. I simply didn't understand a few key aspects of the equation, and now I do. Everything is above board, and even somewhat generously compliant given the minimum for servers in our region. Minimum wage is 2.13 plus tips, to be compensated to 7.25 if tips aren't covering the end of the week total. Except this specific restaurant stops counting tips when tipped hours end, so if I work 5 hours, but one of those hours is after I cash out my last table and I spend the rest of the time doing back work, then that 1 hour is paid 7.25 and my tips only count towards the prior 4, which is not the norm in this city. Thank you all so much for your feedback and suggestions and input. A lot of your messages really helped me frame my questions and issues in a helpful forward-moving way that got this compound problem resolved amicably. Redditors for the win. You guys are awesome. Man demands early bird outside of web hours. Why? Last night the hostess included the early bird menu with the regular menu that she handed to my table at 6:45 p.m. Of course the ebb menu states early bird is only Sunday Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. To make a dumb conversation short, the guest demands that he be served the early bird dinner or else it would be considered false advertising, since he was given the menus and asked for the manager. He ends up getting his way per the MOD. Now my mind immediately thinks of the many restaurants that advertise their daily menus on the main menu, like Chili's. All over Chili's you see Thursday $5 margarita signs. So does that mean I can go into Chili's on a Monday and demand the $5 president simply because the information was shown to me? The place next door to where I work has their happy hour menu included in their main menu. Would I be able to go there and demand happy hour prices outside of happy hour simply because I was given the information? Various Thai restaurants have their lunch menu included in the main menu. Does this mean I can demand to order off their lunch menu at dinner simply because I was able to look at it? At a diner I used to work at, on the main menu it said meatloaf on Fridays, fish fry on Thursdays. Why didn't anyone demand the meatloaf on a Tuesday, since they saw the word meatloaf? I could go on, but I'll stop here. Anyway, I highly doubt he makes those types of demands at those types of places. So I need to know why he felt entitled to demand the early bad meal. Was it simply because it was a separate piece of paper? What if the menu was on a little section and the main menu, like so many other restaurants include? Is it really because it was a separate piece of paper instead of printed in the main menu that it warrants a false advertising claim? My mind is boggled. Got fired after restaurant has new owner. I received a text today that I was let go. A long-time employee came into some money, married rich, bought over the restaurant, and proceeded to fire a few of us, me included. I'm not sure how many of us were fired, but given that I have a squeaky clean record there, no warnings/write-ups, etc., plus a good relationship with the new owner, I find it hard to imagine that the majority, whom he dislikes, and whom in turn dislike him, weren't fired. They've been hiring rapidly in preparation for the takeover. Part of me wants to believe that the new owner fired the old staff so as to prevent insubordination, since the new staff would have only known him as an owner, not a fellow server once upon a time. It was still a bummer as I've only worked there for 3 months. Just wanted to vent a little. Time to send some resumes. If you lose a credit card slip, what do you input for a tip? My practice has always been $0. I lost the slip, so I don't deserve it. My coworkers have different approaches, and was curious how the community felt.